Hey, this is Chris. Now, there's a lot of discussion at the moment around the R word, recession, and whether Australia is going to enter a recession some point in the next year or so. Interest rates are getting ratcheted up very quickly at the moment. That's starting to cause some pressure on households, household spending, and we're starting to see a few more companies let go of people, as that interest rate pressure hits businesses as well. So in this video, I'm going to share 5 tips that I have around how you can prepare financially, yourself and your family, for a recession if and when it hits over the next year or so. And my first tip would be to make sure that you have built up a bit of an emergency fund or a bit of a cash fund for you and your family. This is because in a recession, jobs are probably not going to be as secure as they have been, and we're in a world at the moment in Australia where interest rates being very low has led to employment or unemployment being very low as well. What is likely to happen over the next year if we get towards a recession is that unemployment will start to increase. Businesses will start to let go of people. So having an emergency fund to be able to cover for a period that you're out of work is going to be even more important. But even if you keep your job, having an emergency fund is important because as interest rates increase, having a bit of an extra buffer to be able to cover those increased interest rates through your mortgage or increased living costs through other expenses increasing, is going to be something you're going to want to have. The other one I would say is that make sure that you've paid off any high interest debt if you can. Interest rates increasing, which is potentially the cause of a recession, are going to bite when it comes to high interest debt. And so if you do have debt out there outstanding for credit cards or personal loans or anything else where you're paying high interest rates, see if you can reduce the amount that you have owing on those as soon as possible would be my suggestion. So that would be my tip number 1. Tip number 2 would be, think about where you're working and whether that's really going to be secure work that's going to be able to see out a bad dip in the cycle. What we've seen in previous recessions in Australia is that a lot of companies do go bust or need to let go of people, largely because the companies can't pay off their own interest burden. So there's been some research recently that has showed that if interest rates increase further in Australia, something like 34% of companies may be zombie companies. And by zombie companies, it means a company that can't even afford to pay off its own interest on its debt. So, it's a good time to consider where you're working. Are they a business that's going to be able to see out a more difficult economic scenario, or do they have a lot of debt where it might affect your ability to stay employed, or do they need to raise a lot more capital, which is also difficult at the moment, which may reduce your ability to stay employed. But stable work, I think, is going to be something that's more important going forward. And because there may be a more difficult sort of time in the economy, finding work that's going to be engaging and interesting and work that you can continue to learn in, even if there isn't a lot of activity, is also important. So it could be a good opportunity over the next few years to keep on honing in on your skills, to build those skills and credentials that you can use later in your career while things may be quieter in the businesses you're working at. So that would be my tip number 2, find secure work. 3 would be don't overextend yourself. I don't think now is a great time for people to be, taking on a lot more debt, making big purchases that are unnecessary. It doesn't mean people can't go on a holiday or enjoy themselves, but the cost of financing, let's say, a car is only going to increase, and with less job security, decisions like that are ones that I think you need to make very carefully at the moment. And I wouldn't be suggesting for a lot of people that overextending yourself is a good idea in the current environment with interest rates increasing and the possibility of a recession around the corner. My 4th tip would be make sure you're diversified with your investments and your assets. So, in a recession, it's quite possible that some asset prices fall a lot. And some will go worse than others. Making sure your investments are spread across as many assets as possible is going to help you withstand a recession and help to insulate your personal net worth. My view is that assets like gold are good insulation mechanisms for recessions because this is an asset that has typically done well when a recession's hit, when our domestic currency has depreciated and periods where there might be high inflation and high interest rates. So having some buffer assets in your portfolio, I think, is going to help out. And diversification generally across lots of different stocks, sectors, countries, will help to reduce the impact of market falls if that happens over the next year. And then my final suggestion would be, where possible, give yourself the opportunity to invest if there's a recession. Because generally, while a lot of other people are under a lot of financial pressure and stress and duress, there's going to be a lot of great opportunities to invest, whether it's in the share market or in property or other places. So those people that have an opportunity to take advantage of those lower prices are going to set themselves up really well for the next positive cycle. There's not going to be a lot of opportunities that people can take advantage of, because there may not be a lot of money that people have to take advantage of them. So where you can, ring fence some money that's available to take advantage of bargains, because what we've seen in the past is recessions or downturns have led to some amazing bargains that can then set yourself up for the next part of your life. And that'd be my 5 tips for preparing for a recession here in Australia, potentially in the next year.